Da mi je stupio na sredinu da vam še čisto vedem. A tu ste se...
Ivan, Marilisa just called here. Marilisa, call.
Da mi je sa sredina da vam prevedem.
It's my...
Ah.
I'm calling myself.
No, if you were calling for some.
Ah, it's here.
Marisa called here. But...
Oh, it's my phone. I was calling myself.
Ah, okay.
Different than Livestream we use.
I mean the Spanish.
Oh.
On je na sklene. Ja, naš no, it looks like it is. Oh, this has been and I will write it down. Oh, sorry. To mi ide na probleme kada prevajam iz angleščine u slovenščinu.
Znaš li bosanski?
Ona zna, evo, hrvaško. Jamu, hrvatsko, bosansko, srpski, to je sve.
Eto, vidiš, sve ide.
Da, pa 3 jezika čovječe, kad čovjek barata. Meni ne greje, sam slovenska. Okay.
Are we ready?
Yeah, I think we are, guys.
Yeah. Ready? Okay. So today I'm going to present different types of photography. Not only, like, nowadays it's mostly digital, then the printing techniques are usually offset, so I have a plate with laser etched, and then the ink is applied, or just regular printing machines. So nowadays we experience the photos mainly through these kind of prints or the screen. But there are other techniques to show the pictures. So for example, this is one of the first and most natural way to make a photo print. All the plants has naturally a chlorophyll. It's a light sensitive chemical that makes the plant green. So if you block some of the parts of the leaf, like shown here with the negative or painting on a transparent slate, you will get this kind of photos. So the parts where the negative, where the plant didn't get the light, turned this grayish whiter, and the places where the leaf got the sunlight, it's still alive, basically. Different a bit process, but still in the same realm. It's a print using the same leaves, petals, just grinded them into a paste and then apply to the paper. So you have the same chlorophyll that is light sensitive, but you now have a paper and you can make a bigger print, for example. So this is roughly how it looks. First you grind the petals, then you coat them with the paper and then expose these. Maybe I will talk about them a bit later, but these are special contact printing frames. This is the process that we're going to do today. This is called cyanotype, and later I will show the whole process of it. These photos are from one of the first photographically illustrated books in the history of photography. So, British botanical lady, she collected the samples of all, like huge sample collection of the British algae, so different seaweeds, flowers, and so on. Also what I want to say, this is these processes that I showed you so far, it's called photogram. So you don't have any lens to form the image. You have only, for example, the sleeve, light sensitive material, and you press it down. So you have exact replica of the object, the shadow cast by the leaf itself. This is, so far I talked about the processes that didn't involve silver, because most of the processes are basically different variations of the silver. What's it called? Yes. Okay, so if you would think about, for example, sensitivity, when you have film, it's like 100, it's kind of slow, like 400, okay, but this is 0.4 or 0.4 ISO, so it's in this kind of daylight it would take around 40 minutes or so to make a photo. This is how it looks. I will show also the video of it. So basically we have a solution that is collodion. It's a thick material that has some salts in it. Yeah, silver salts, now I remember. It has some salts, so different kinds of salts. It's not light sensitive till it is emerged into silver nitrate. It's a most commonly used silver salt to make the prints. And then it becomes light sensitive, and then this is how it looks before the photo. But now I want to show how it looks when it's made by first hand. It's a nice portrait.
The last one is too late.
Second is close.
Yeah.
Let's try to close it.
You have no internet?
I don't need.
Yeah, the internet is off.
He doesn't need it.
Ah.
Do you have the video on the laptop?
Okay.
It just doesn't work once you put it forward.
Hi. Hello. I'm Will from Tested.
I'm Adam. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I'm standing right next to you, though.
I'm soon to be former host of Mythbusters, and I'm Tested Adam.
Woo! And I'm Norm. Thank you so much for coming. We are tested.com, and we've had the privilege on our website to share our interests and our obsessions and the obsessions and projects of our friends in the maker community. And that's what we're going to see tonight. For the next 90 minutes, you're going to see presentations, demos, interviews, some fun videos, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's basically a week of the stuff we do on Tested in one evening.
I love all the phones I see.
Yeah.
Well done.
Awesome. So I guess that's it. Thank you guys for coming out. Adam, you need to take a seat right there.
All right.
I'm going to clear the stage.
All right.
So for our first presentation, our first presenter is a local photographer. He practices the art of tintype photography. You may have seen some of his work on Tested and on the back of our set. And please welcome to the stage, Michael Schindler.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. I am Michael Schindler. I'm not a scientist, but I am a photographer, and I make tintypes using the wet plate collodion process, which is an early photographic process that was invented in 1851. And that's an era that really predates film as we think of film. Film being something you can go to the store and buy, put in your camera, and take a picture with it. In those days, if you wanted to make a photograph, you really had to make your own materials. And the reason for that is that they hadn't yet figured out how to make the materials last long enough. They really didn't have any kind of shelf life. And with this particular process, the plates only last for about 10 minutes. So what that means is that you have to do the processing wherever you're taking photographs. So what we're going to do is make a photograph here, thank you, and turn the entire theater into a darkroom. So we'll turn off the house lights and light it with a red, which we can use as a safe light. This process is only sensitive to blue light. So the first thing that I do is take a metal plate. In this case, it's a sheet of aluminum that has a black enamel coating on it. And I coat the plate with a liquid nitrocellulose solution. It just might. So I'm trying to just float this puddle across the surface of the plate and not spill any more of it than necessary. And it's really hard to talk while I do this. There we go. Not too bad. Okay. So, since all of the processing has to occur while this plate is still wet, I'm kind of in a hurry to get it into the sensitizing solution. The material that I just poured on here is not actually light sensitive. It becomes light sensitive when it is sitting in this tank of silver nitrate, and that takes about 3 minutes to happen. There we go, so into the tank. What I really love about this process is, even though I've been a photographer for a long time, it wasn't until I started making tintypes that I really kind of figured out how photography worked. And it's just the process of making your own materials and knowing exactly what the ingredients are, and then sort of asking yourself, like, what's that for? What does that do? And one great thing about this process is it's really very, very simple. There are only about 8 chemicals involved in the entire process. So in here, I've got the liquid nitrocellulose that I've added a couple of different salts to. In this case, it's cadmium bromide and ammonium iodide. And those 2 salts will combine with the silver nitrate that's in this tank and will form silver iodide and silver bromide on the plate. And those are light-sensitive salts of silver. And they're pretty much the same light-sensitive salts that are used in almost every other photographic process. Even modern color films and papers have the same essential photochemistry. So this plate is starting to turn a little bit white as the silver salts form on its surface. And in just another minute, it's going to be sensitive enough for us to take a photograph on. Now, it's not very sensitive. If you ever shoot film, you probably notice It's usually rated with a film speed, maybe 100 or 400. In this case, if this had an ISO speed, it would be like 0.5. So it's pretty slow. And back in the 19th century, of course, they didn't have good artificial light sources, so they were using sunlight. And in bright open shade conditions, they would probably have had exposures of around, 4 to 8 seconds. So with the aid of these very powerful power packs, we can get all the exposure that we need in just about in one very bright flash. Now, you didn't usually see tintypes this size being made back in the day. Most of the tintypes you'll find from the 19th century are about the size of a credit card. Because it's really kind of a pain to make them this big, to be honest. Okay, so I'm just going to mop off the excess silver nitrate from the back of this plate. All right. Are you ready over there, Adam?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. All right. So if you could see in the back of the camera here, you would see Adam's face, his graceful visage, upside down, and you get used to that after a while, but it is kind of a dim image in there, and it's a little bit difficult to see. So I'm going to focus it with this little magnifying glass. And Adam, if you could turn your face ever so slightly to the left. Perfect. Great. All right, just hold that. And now I'll close the shutter. Okay. Putting the plate into the camera. And okay, ready? And 1, 2. Excellent. Your vision should recover in a couple of hours.
I'm okay. Well done.
Okay. All right, there we go. Boy, I really hope this works. Okay. So I'm just going to pour some developer on here. Simple developer, ferrous sulfate, a little bit of acetic acid, which acts as a restrainer to slow the developer down so it doesn't develop unexposed areas. And the development happens really fast. It's like 15 seconds. And the image will come up, and at first it'll look like a negative. Okay. Oh, you got something.
Oh,
that's
that is
good news.
far out.
Here it comes. Okay, and that is like all the development it's going to get. Alright, so now quickly just rinsing the developer off to stop the development.
I look severely burned. I have been burned before, so it's okay. Now I look like the Wolfman.
Alright, so I just got to rinse off the back real quick. Okay. And now the fun part, because we're going to put it in the fixer, and the fixer is going to clear away all of the silver salts that were not exposed and developed. And what's going to happen is it's going to look like the image is disappearing, but then it's going to come back as a positive.
That is a magic trick.
All right. Okay, so we can turn the lights back on now. The processing is complete.
And I look just like my dad.
It puts a good 20 years on everybody.
The camera adds 20 years. I've heard that.
All right. So, there we go.
That is so
Nice work.
beautiful.
So
Just a hint of a
rinse
smile.
like the Mona Lisa.
Okay. So that process was made on aluminum, but you can also make this on the glass, and that's when the first negative came to life, and that was the first point when the photograph could be multiplied, because that was one of the kind photo. You just have this tintype in the black, and that's it. But if you have if you do the same, exactly the same thing on the glass, you will get the negative. And then there's and then basically using the same silver nitrate and the albumin that is found in egg whites, you can make pretty similar photograph. You can reproduce the photos like in an internet age. Maybe I won't show this one because it will also took a lot of time.
Okay, that's it. It's that.
No, even? I'll just skip it just a bit.
End of the day, the end of the work.
The reason why I wanted to show this person is he's from this region and he still makes this process, and maybe now he's making So basically what he did, he separated egg whites from the yolks, then blended till the foam came to, then waited for a day, and then all the foam like fall down, and this is the liquid that you get from. This is called albumin. Then he added a couple of salts, not silver salts, but they will later react with the silver nitrate. Now it's not sensitive to light, but it's only the yolk, the albumin, that carries the salts. It's like the base. So he dried the paper from previous coating, and then he puts it onto the silver nitrate and then dries it again. Now it's light sensitive, and it's sensitive to ultraviolet light only. That's why he's doing it in a light. that you kind of saw the negative. That was the same process as previous, but on a glass. That's why you can reproduce them. And these are special contact printing frames. For this print, it takes around 15 minutes up to half an hour to make. This was the time lapse. Okay, the next one.
What's the name of that technique he used?
It's albumin print, but it was made from amber type. It's tin type, the previous one, but when you make a negative, it's amber type. This is a bit different type of technique. It was made in the early ages of photography when just pure photo wasn't considered as art. So what photographers did, they tried to simulate the painting as much as possible by using different techniques. One of this is this one. So it is made from regular photo paper that is used now. At least I use it. So it's from the same. It's just simple paper. Then you just make a normal photo, but you use the chemicals to bleach it. And how that works is when you have a photo, it's black and white. So in the parts where the silver formed and it's black, the chemicals just eat that part, and it becomes like this. How to say? Grippy. It can attract ink, and the parts where there was no black spots, it's kind of like a glass. It doesn't catch the ink. So these are more or less the equipment that is used. So you just bleach it and then use different, usually these kind of brushes, the rounded ones, really dense ones, and you use special ink. It's lithography ink usually used. It works best, and I can show also really quick time lapse. So this is how it roughly looks. This is already bleached, so you have kind of an image you can still see, but it's all white. You have only like surfaces, relief. So what he does now, he just applies the ink to all of the places, and then he uses like this roller to get rid of the ink. The ink sticks to the roller, and that's how he gets of the white parts the ink out. This is roughly how it looks. This is another process. I won't get into that much of the details, but I'll explain briefly how the color photography worked, at least in the early ages. So you would took at least three photos, but you use the different filters. For example, red, green, and yellow. No. Red, green, and blue. And then you have three different negatives with the different densities of, because when you put the filter on, the black and white, in a black and white photo, you see all the blue light coming, and any other color is getting filtrated, like out. If you would took like red filter and photograph red dress, it would be black. So it took all the information of exactly that color.
But is green or is yellow? Is red, blue, and yellow, or red, blue, and green?
Red, blue, and green.
Green? It's not the prime basic color?
This is sometimes confusing because painters and photographers use different primary. Because in photography there's RGB, red, green, and blue. Like this green is RGB because it shows, like, shines the light. And in printing, for example, these photos should be printed with cyan, yellow, and magenta, because when you combine those colors, you get black. So you have white, like, surface, and you put the blackness in. And for example, this green is black, and you put the lightness. That's why, because if you blend red, green, and blue, you get white. So that's how the printing and reflective thing works. So you get the three negatives and you print on the same surface 3 prints basically. With, for example, this process is also with, like, using the silver nitrate, the same chemical, but it uses also the ink in that process. So what happens is in the parts where the light didn't have the chance to come, the ink will wash out. So you get different coatings with the different amounts of ink. For example, red, green, and cyan, yellow, magenta corresponding to RGB, and you get the color. This one is also one of the more simpler. It's called salt print, and it's basically just using salts. The salts are used quite popularly Himalayan salt, I think, and sea salts, because they have different amounts of different salts, like iodide salts and so on. So it's used mixed later with the silver nitrate. That's how we get silver bromide, iodide, and chloride, maybe sometimes. This is arguably one of the, you cannot see, like, you need to see these prints in first hand, because it's impossible to show these prints on the screen. But this is arguably one of the highest quality prints that is possible. I just wanted to say that. It also uses silver nitrate, but it uses also different chemicals that makes this kind of brownish tone. It's with a platinum mix, but it's a bit too hard. Like, it is really complicated process. Now in the world, there's like a handful of people that are still really knows how to do it. This is, I think, one of the most popular processes, and basically it was used like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It was the medium that every photographer basically used. It was the base of all photography. It is made also with the silver nitrate, but it uses the gelatin, like from the animal gelatin, as a layer to keep the salts in. That's why you get this kind of smooth, glossy finish. You don't see the paper imperfections. You have like protective glossy, like a glass finish. This is like ordinary darkroom that you see in movies. Just for fun. It's like watching a movie, I think. This is also the process, like one interesting difference between this process and all of the previous ones. You had to exact same size negative. So that means if you want that big of a print, you need to have that big of a camera. And this process lets you enlarge the print. So you can get from this size of a negative to the, I don't know, meter by meter. This is also the process where you don't need that much of a light. That means you can make fast exposures and you don't need to wait at least, like for example with previous processes, like 15 minutes or something to make a print. The exposures can be a couple of seconds. Okay, now I want to talk also about the cameras themselves, just a bit, because not only the printing makes the photo, but actually it's half-half. One of the earliest photo cameras, maybe not even photo cameras, these like machines, not machines, like tools were used by the painters themselves. It's called camera obscura. You would have, in that sense, a lens in a box, and then a mirror and just a glass. So when you put the paper on this glass, you can see everything that is reflected through the lens. It's something similar as you could see in that camera, like behind you. There is one camera that is there. So you could actually put kind of translucent paper on it and just sketch everything out. And it was pretty much used by the painters before the photochemistry was invented. But one of the most simplest ways to project the light is actually not the lens but the hole. When you have, I can go to this. When you have, for example, in this coffee container, if you have really small hole, you can make these kind of photos. This one was made, this is basically the track of the sun. So you see, maybe it's like about here, I think, because you can see quite a lot of lines. So you can see every day's sun traveling, how to say, amplitude. And these distortions are usually caused by the surface roundness. Or you can, for example, you cannot take the sensor camera and just bend it. You break it. But you can just curl the paper and get different perspectives on it. Also, if you would make just a tiny bit bigger, like that, not tiny, just, for example, you cover your home rooms, house windows, and like pitch black, and you have only like a coin size hole, you will have this. And this is basically the camera obscura. This is the light projected from the outside to the inside just through the hole. No lens at all. That is how it looks in the camera. You can live in the camera if you want to. And yeah, I would like to show you one short video at the end. Yep. sorry it's that. But this is also a camera obscura and one person decided to film it. And what you can notice when you have a camera, you actually get when you have a lens or the whole. Oh, okay. We need an internet.
Ivan?
Šarūnas, when you have camera obscura, is there something in the hole, like a lens or something?
No, it's just a hole. Because when you have, for example, how the light travels, it's a photon. Like it is kind of photon and the wave actually, like in a physics. But if you consider the light as like teeny tiny particle, it moves in a straight line all the ways. That's why when you have like polarizers, you can block certain particles just by how they move. So
Don't you get just a light instead of the picture? There's actually a picture. How?
because the light, for example, I need a blackboard.
We have one.
Have one.
Okay, so example, this is like one of the sides of the box. You have the like teeny tiny hole here, and the light, it doesn't go like in a random order. It always goes from the light source straight to one point, like one photon. And when it got through this teeny tiny hole, it goes directly at the same angle. So example, if the light comes from here, it always gets there. And when you have like a small hole, so imagine, okay. So imagine you get this big of a hole.
Okay.
And the light goes in one line.
Okay.
So imagine the picture just out of these dots. Because every light, we don't need it. So imagine every light particle just goes like that. For example, I needed to make a pinhole at workshop. That's how I would show it.
So if you would look through that hole, you would only see basically one color, one pixel of the outside world. And each point of view have the correspondent pixel of the outside world, and no other lights. Because if you look through a big window, you lose so many colors, so many pictures that it's all blurred out.
For example, I might say if you just took a pinhole like this, and you cannot see it, yeah, like you said, you cannot see everything around it, because my eye is in this spot, and the light comes like that. If I want to see something else, I would like move here, and I see this point. So when you have the surface, like for example, my head is moving.
Yeah.
So I see different parts of the image
Okay.
there. So that maybe it's more just fun.
But how does it project then into the ceiling, into the camera obscura?
It's the same. It's the same as I basically said. How to explain it?
Well, it projects all the time, but you cannot see it because there are too many projections
So
over.
you kind of see, like if you want to see certain parts of the what is behind, you have to move the eye. So that's how the light actually travels. So you have a projection.
Yeah. Okay.
It kind of explains it.
Yeah, but I don't see how it, because there you can actually see it on the wall afterwards.
So imagine not your eye, but just white surface. So the light still goes to that surface and leaves the trace of its like brightness.
Okay.
It's not permanent. It's just the light, the same as you would use with the lens. But with the lens you have in focus and out of focus points. And in this, everything is in focus because it doesn't spread or contract the light. That's the thing, the difference.
Okay. Let's say I kind of understand.
So basically, that's what I wanted to say, like regarding the processes. But what the main goal was to show that the digital part is awesome. It's awesome, but it's just one part of the whole processes that is possible to do. And don't miss out. Keep the traditions going, and it's the same with everything, like with vinyls and MP3 tapes, for example. There's like in United States, they like one guy. There's some people that keep these traditions and keep things real, but I want that more of the people would look at the older technologies in some way, because I'm kind of afraid that some of these traditions and processes will die out someday, because I see that even those processes, I don't know the person in Lithuania that makes, for example, at least half of these processes that I showed. So that is.
And we'll try a new one later.
Yeah, and we will try to. And yeah, I will show and I will spread the knowledge of one of these processes, and I will explain how it's done, and you will keep the tradition and try to yourself maybe someday and show to the others.
Thank you. Okay, so now, as I said before, we have 1 hour break. If you have any questions for him, you can find him, but he will prepare for the workshop. So after that, we'll actually try one of these techniques to see how it works. I've seen the results from yesterday when we were trying it. It's super cool. So in the meantime, here you have the papers. Write in who your winner is and put it in here, and I will count the votes later on. So yes, please do that, and we'll bring some snacks out now so we have something to eat as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,